learners should have more choice over how or when they are assessed during their schooling.
More choice.
More choice.
More choice.
So they should have more choice in how they're assessed during their schooling.
Ooh.
I'm going to be bold. I'm going to be bold, and I'm going to think about myself as a student and think about the children I've taught over the years.
You're trying to convince me before I've even
Yes,
made
I am.
I don't know. I'm sort of more choice. They already have quite a lot of choice.
Mm-hmm. And I guess it depends on what we're talking about in terms of assessment. Are we talking like day-to-day classroom stuff that, here's 3 different activities, and you might choose something that, you're really good at putting together a short film on something, and that might really inspire your creative juices flowing. Or do we talk about sort of that end of year exam type thing where it's really tricky to make sure that it's reliable and that you're providing sort of a fair assessment of all your students if there's too much choice?
Yeah. And obviously the kind of the technical issues of giving more choice, for example, whether they choose whether to do an exam or coursework and so on, making those comparable is always a really tricky thing to do as well. So there's certain moments, if you like, in a child's education where choice is a good thing.
Yeah.
But like subjects that they're interested in doing, for example, that is a choice, I suppose, in terms of their assessment.
Yeah, definitely.
But in terms of the practicalities of how you do each individual subject or those sorts of things, it's tricky to introduce more unless you think about things like comparability.
Yeah, no, it's a good question that Andy's come up with on this one. I think because you can think about it in an exam having optionality, or it could just be that day-to-day sort of having choice in your lessons on how you want to demonstrate you've learned something. So yeah, it's a nice one to think about, but I'm sticking with strongly agree. I would like more choice.
Next question. Teachers should be assessed more than students.
Ooh,
Right.
okay. This will be interesting.
Yeah, former teacher, I'm going to go with your
Well,
wisdom on that one.
that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, as a former teacher, it's a tricky one. It depends, I think, on what we're talking about and why the purposes. We always go back to the purposes of assessment, don't we?
I'm going to go all out. Strongly disagree.
So it's an interesting one. The way you phrased that was teachers should be assessed more than students. So it's important for everyone to have a continual professional development, and you can't do that meaningfully without some form of assessment. So when I was a teacher, I might have had someone come through and observe a lesson, or I might have had someone have a look at a lesson plan and give me some feedback. I would still class that as assessment. And it's for the good of the children. I always think about what is best for the learners in every situation. What are we trying to do? Why are we trying to get to that? What's our end point? And if it's to make sure we have a better quality education for our children.
Yeah.
And that means assessing teachers.
The reason why I went strongly disagree is because the assessment is a natural part of teaching.
Yeah.
So if we're talking about teachers being assessed more than the students are kind of having some, the idea of responsive teaching. They're constantly being asked questions, you're getting information, you're processing, interpreting that as a teacher. So that is a form of assessment in a very informal, non-formal way.
It is.
So to do that more from a teacher's perspective, that isn't really feasible and not desirable either. So that's why I went for strongly disagree.
Last point from me on this one is let's also include self and peer assessment. So it even just could be a colleague making a comment to you, I picked up on that, you said to so-and-so, or me reflecting at the end of a day on my lessons and how I could do better next time. If we include those as assessments, then I'm going to be bold and I'm going to say agree, because on a day-to-day basis, I reckon teachers should probably be doing that kind of reflection.
Yeah.
Nice. Next question. Every subject should be assessed in the same way.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I think this is an easy one.
I'm afraid so. But let's say why at least. Yeah, definitely. You first.
They shouldn't be assessed in the same way because they're all different things. And one of the key parts of what makes a valid assessment is that you're making a professional judgment at some point about how you go about that process. And when it's mathematics, you need to express different things. When it's geography, it's a different thing. When it's collaboration, it's something else. So the way that you set up the task to get to those knowledge and skills will always be subtly different, even if it's broadly in a similar form, such as an examination or coursework. So the subtleties there, but they are all different, and we should acknowledge that, really.
So you've actually said something that's made me reflect myself, actually. I'm moving to agree, because I'm going to take Andy's question as a assess in the same way, as in have sort of the same principles that we might follow when setting up an assessment. So we might write an assessment, but it could be an observation, it could be a written exam, it could be some sort of practical work, but we will always have the same principles. So we want it to be valid, we want to make sure there's clear assessment criteria, there's a way to standardize the marking, that kind of thing. So I'm going to just spin that question a little bit and take my new interpretation of it as, regardless of the form that you use, or that the exam mode or the test mode or the assessment mode, you would still have that same sort of criteria that you'd follow to set up a robust, valid, reliable assessment.
Yeah, on the principles, based on the principles, of course. Always, yeah.
Are you going to move, Simon? Based on
No, I'm not.
Fair enough, fair enough.
Yeah, it's a good argument. You know, you're right. The upper level of, in terms of the things you're thinking about when you're making decisions about assessment, you're right. There should always be the same principles, the same sort of practices in that sense. But once you've defined your construct, that's when everything else can change.
And what it looks like on the other side, it will be different.
Yeah,
fair enough. Yes.
Of course. Yeah. Well, I like your spin on the question.
Final question. Coursework is a more valid measure than exams.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Valid. You've said valid.
Yeah. Ooh, that is a tough one.
Yeah, I'm going to leave my cup there.
Yeah, I'm going to subtly disagree with that.
Okay.
Again, this idea of once you've defined what you're interested in assessing, you have to make a decision at that point about whether it is an exam, piece of coursework, a simulation of a real world task, you know, if you're thinking about competency. So when there's an argument or a reason for choosing coursework over an assessment or an exam, you should be able to define that and justify that to anyone that's asking, whether that's parents, other teachers, students. So there will never be a kind of overarching one is better than the other. There'll always be a better argument for one or the other, and you've got to base it on those decisions, really.
Yeah. And I'm thinking coursework, to me, the reason I've agreed with that in terms of the validity specifically, not necessarily reliability, but for validity, I do feel, from my experience anyway, as a science teacher, that coursework gives an opportunity, a greater opportunity for learners to really demonstrate what they've learned. You can probably get a wider range of the construct of what they've been taught in the lesson, whereas an exam is really tricky to provide that breadth of a course all in one exam. So and it might be my science background that's making me think that. I'm immediately going back to the classroom and thinking about what would be more valid in terms of it. But what I am grateful for is that if you did have a course, it's not just coursework. You tend to have a few different types of assessment to assess the entire construct.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would still, I'm sticking with it. I agree on that one.
We've agreed less often than I thought we would.
Yeah, no. It's good though. It's
We're
good.
still friends. That's the main
Yes,
thing.
we are.
Good.